So, it's episode 1, and I feel like we should probably introduce ourselves. My name is Ashleigh Wilmot, and I'm a presenter, reporter, mainly working in the world of sport. And I'm delighted to be going on this podcasting journey with my gorgeous co-host, Jodie Ounsley. Jodie is a professional rugby player. She currently plays for Exeter Chiefs.
I absolutely love it, and now being near the beach, the girls are amazing, so now I'm like, I literally cannot imagine my life not being near the beach.
She became the first ever deaf female sevens player. She's the honorary president of UK Deaf Sport. She's won Deaf Sports Personality of the Year. She's a former British Jiu-jitsu champion, and not only that, she's also a gladiator.
I thought I'm going to have to turn the opportunity away because rugby, Chiefs, you're not going to let me do it. Do you know, like when you're a bit drunk and you get a bit more confident?
Sadly,
like,
yes.
It's like that. When I get my Fury sort of persona, I'm like, I'm confident.
This season we've got some fantastic guests, but today we're going to be focusing on Jodie and her amazing story. Jodie, you've got one hell of a story. Let's start at the very beginning, because you were born extremely premature, and that then meant that you were born profoundly deaf. So you've had challenges since, the day you opened your eyes, really. Can you take us back to when you can remember, or what you know from the early days?
Well, obviously, like, I was a baby, so my parents found out I was deaf. But then obviously my journey started when I had my Cochlear implant fitted. So that was like when I was 14 months old. And then it's sort of where I remember was a couple of years later when I was at the Elizabeth Foundation. So that's basically like preschool, where you basically intense rehab and speech therapy. And then when I did go to school, I sort of went around the playground telling people, oh yeah, I've got a robot ear. And I generally thought in my head that they cut my ear off and just put a new ear on. That's what I thought it was. I didn't have any clue of like cochlear implants or even hearing aids or anything like that. I just thought, yeah, they took my ear off and now I've got a robot ear. And everyone loved it at school. But I thought that was genuine. And then when I found out that wasn't real, I was a bit like... Oh.
Devastated.
Yeah.
I thought it was a robot.
Yeah, literally. I was like, oh...
Cochlear implant, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, can you just explain a little bit about what it is and what the operation entailed?
Yeah, so cochlear implants is a bit more like advanced than hearing aids. To put it short, I'm basically too deaf for hearing aids, so that's why I had to have a cochlear implant. So I'm, obviously there's different levels of deafness. I'm profoundly, so that's obviously no hearing left whatsoever in both sides. So then the science behind cochlear implants, it basically like bypasses sound, bypasses your ears, because obviously my ears don't work, goes straight to your brain and like sends sort of electrical signals which like interprets as sound, but really it's not actually sound that I'm hearing. Wow. So it's like, it's absolutely wild, because obviously without my cochlear implant there's nothing there. So how it actually works, it's crazy. But yeah, obviously the operation is because it's a magnet that sits under your skin, and that sits on your skull, and then the processor, which is like where the batteries are, and that's what you see on my ear, that attaches to the magnet on my head then, and then that's obviously like when I can sort of hear some sounds. So
basically, when someone's telling you something you don't want to listen to, you can just be like, I'm switching you off, mate.
Just take it off, yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, obviously when I was a kid, my parents said I did that quite often, just when I was getting told off and stuff like that. I'd just take it off and wear a bit of sass and stuff. But obviously I wouldn't do it now, but yeah.
I feel like my parents would have preferred to have one of those to switch the kids off.
Yeah, when you've had enough. But
wow,
yeah.
It's amazing the technology that goes into that kind of stuff. Obviously you can hear me at the moment because you've got it on.
Yeah.
But otherwise... You have learnt to lip read, haven't you? It's never been sign language for you.
No, obviously it's different for everyone. Like, it depends on your upbringing, whether you go to mainstream school or deaf school, or, whether your parents are deaf, or there's so many factors that go into it. But for me, I had my cochlear implant, went to mainstream school and sort of got advised to focus on speech therapy. And then if I wanted to learn sign language later on in my life, then I have that option. So yeah, for me, it's speech therapy and lip reading. So even from when I was like very young, I'm just constantly looking at my parents' mouths, examining how their lip patterns move, how they say certain words, and obviously different accents have different lip patterns.
Wow.
So like with my parents, I can have my implant off and I can just have a conversation with them without hearing them, just because I know their lip patterns so well. Whereas if it's like someone else with like a Scottish accent, for example, then I do have to concentrate harder because I'm like, oh, that's a different lip pattern, which people probably don't realise that, but yeah.
I feel like you're always working probably 10 times harder than anyone else in the room.
It's always high concentration all the time, yeah.
And I think, you know, if you just walked into a room, right now you've got your hair down, and you've got gorgeous curly hair, you can't see
no, I suppose it's under
implant,
my hair, yeah.
It's so discreet, you wouldn't even know.
Yeah, I think quite a lot of people say that, and I think also because I manage so well most of the time, even now I've got confidence, so if I'm struggling, I say, look, I'm really struggling to hear you, or if it's a noisy environment, but most of the time I do just crack on, and then people do forget that I am deaf and do forget I do struggle, so then people are just a bit oblivious or naturally forget.
You've always been a really high achiever when it comes to sport, but it all began with coal carrying, is that right?
Yeah, the World Coal Carrying Championship.
So what is that, first of all? Is that a Yorkshire thing?
No, it's a Yorkshire thing, yeah.
Oh, it is?
But
okay.
in Yorkshire, it's like a sack of coal on your shoulders. You run a mile uphill and it's the first person to the maypole. And it started like 40 or 50 years or whatever it was. And it were basically two guys from the pub. And I don't know why, where the coal came from or where this idea came from. And they just raced each other to the maypole. And then it's just happened ever since. And now it's like an actual legit sort of event. You get prize money. There's different types of races, like different age grades. And it's ever like Easter Monday. So
I love those like small town traditions. Is it just in your town that this happens?
Literally just Yorkshire. And like the crowds that you get are like ridiculous. Just to say it's just like a little Yorkshire event, but just like all the way down the streets, everyone's lined up, and then like the last sort of 100 metres, you sort of sprint like past all the crowds and stuff, and it's just like, it's crazy. And then you throw your coal onto the sack of hay then at the end.
And then do you have to run back down the hill, or is that it?
No, that's it.
Oh, wow. So you've won this 5 times.
Yeah.
That is pretty impressive stuff. How old were you when you first won it?
Well, you were supposed to be like 5 years old to be able
What?
to compete. Yeah, but
5-year-olds do this?
yeah,
That's
but then
insane.
I know, but then I was actually 3 years old, but my dad lied about my age so that I could compete because he competed, and then I obviously saw him. I was like, I want to do it. So,
You were only 3?
Yeah.
I was not, sorry, I was expecting you to say something like 16.
No.
3 years old.
yeah, but obviously,
Superwoman.
no, but for the kids though, it's not like sack of coal on your shoulders. It's like little bags
Oh,
that
right.
you just had in your hand.
So you
like
did the kids' version.
Yeah, the kids version. I go and watch still now, like every year, but
So you won that 5 times in a row, but you're also a Brazilian Jiu-jitsu champion.
Yeah.
So how did coal carrying turn into Jiu-jitsu?
my dad.
Yeah.
Because obviously he's come from a fighting background, like from MMA and then Brazilian Jiu-jitsu. So obviously like...
He was a professional, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so my dad made our garage into like a fighting area basically. Like we put mats down,
Yeah.
got mirrors up and stuff like that. So it was like a proper little fighting area basically.
Your gladiator training has started from a very
I
young
know.
age. I can see this.
Yeah, and also he set up like Olympic rings as well, which I was always on. And obviously there's like Olympic rings in like Gladiators and stuff. But anyway, yeah, so like our Saturday nights were just like fighting with each other. Or shall we go and have a roll in the garage, just have fights? It was just the norm. And obviously I've got a brother as well, so it was like all 3 of us. And then I kind of just loved fighting with him, so signed up to... I did like judo, karate first, but then went into Brazilian Jiu-jitsu, which I liked a lot more because it's more like freedom, like chokes, arm locks and leg locks and stuff, and you have to tap out as well, so I think that will be an exciting element to it.
We don't want to get on your bad side, Jodie, to be honest.
No, I promise I'm nice.
Yeah, but you are lovely, but you've obviously got this side to you where you just switch.
I can just switch that, and sometimes I scare myself. I don't know why, it's like this anger or rage that just comes out of nowhere. I've got nothing to be angry about, but yeah, I think it's just like a competitive streak.
That's what's so interesting, is that you grew up in that unique environment. You know, not everyone's dad does what your dad did or still does. As a woman, it's amazing that you have these skills anyway for like self-defense purposes. So I've always thought about doing classes like that, just so I can, like, you know, if anything were to happen, you can defend yourself properly, right?
Like, I've never really thought about that, but I'm quite lucky that, you know, if someone were to, you know, attack me or something, I'd know how to defend myself.
You jump into action. They'd have no chance, would they?
Get a little ankle lock on or whatever. But no, my dad's done that actually, because he's obviously been in the police as well for like 30 years. He's done like self-defense classes with women and stuff like that, and it's been a massive thing. So I do think it would be so beneficial for even in schools or colleges or stuff like that. Even just, you know, how to defend yourself. You don't need to know how to like go and beat someone up. You just need to know what to do in that situation. If someone's grabbed you, how to get out, and use different techniques to do that. So
maybe after we finish filming this, you can just give me a few tips. Because I think I would crumble. I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah. Even if I just show you one choke, like a guillotine or like a rear naked choke, like from the back.
Guillotine?
Yeah, which is like, do you know the head between?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like you can do a choke with like, if you was wearing a jacket or a suit, like you sort of use the jacket to choke someone. So you like grab here and pull down, and it's another way to defend yourself. So I'll show you after.
Yeah, I feel like I could learn a lot, to be honest. I just thought a guillotine was something that you just cut paper with.
Well, it is, isn't it?
Is that what they get it from? It feels like you've actually done so much, because you were the Jiu-jitsu champion. You've also represented Team GB at the Deaf Olympics.
Yeah.
Now that happens every 4 years.
Yeah.
You were 16 at the time.
Yeah.
And that was in sprinting.
Yeah.
So how did that come about, and what made you want to do that?
Well, the thing is, not a lot of people know about the Deaf Olympics, being honest. Like, people know the Paralympics and the Olympics, but the Deaf Olympics is if you're not in the deaf community, quite a lot of people are not aware about it, and that's due to just like the lack of exposure and the lack of funding, because all the funding, you have to fund yourself to go, just to like represent your country, which is still a long way to go, but it sort of came round because my dad happened to see it, and then he was like, oh, there's a Deaf Olympics, and I was like, oh, really? And sort of see how you can sort of get into it and stuff. So then I was doing athletics anyway, so I was doing athletics, like competing most weekends anyway. So just had to obviously reach out, and then you had to sort of qualify, which I did. And then next minute we're going to Turkey for the sort of Deaf Olympics and then competing. But it was so crazy because obviously for the races, you don't use a start gun because obviously
of course, 'cause
everyone's deaf, yeah. So you use like a traffic light system. So like on the start, you use the starting blocks, but instead of like hearing the gun, it's just the traffic lights like red, amber, green, and then you set off. And you have to take all your devices off. So like your hearing aids, cochlear implants. So it's like a fair baseline. But I've always had my cochlear implant up until that point, like at school and stuff. So it's my first time of running without it, which was bizarre because it was like...
You can't hear anyone cheering you on or anything.
Not even that. Like, you can't hear your feet hitting the ground. You can't hear yourself breathe. You can't hear the wind. It was such a weird feeling. It was like you were almost floating
just
in emptiness.
Silence.
Yeah. Because even like just hearing yourself breathe or like hit the sound of your feet on the floor, I just couldn't hear any of it, and it was bizarre. And then I always remember like in the semi-final, finished a race, I thought I got through, and then there was like a girl next to me, because obviously I didn't have my implant on, she was sort of doing an X at me or something, and I thought I'd been disqualified.
Right.
So I came off absolutely bawling my eyes out thinking I'd been disqualified, and turns out I hadn't.
Did someone come up to you and be like, what are you crying about?
It was my dad. Afterwards, he gave me my implant, and I would bawl my eyes out, and he's like, Jodie, why are you crying? I was like, I've been disqualified. And he was like, no, you haven't. So I was like, oh, brilliant.
Oh, well, at least it worked out well in the end.
And it was a great experience, and I met so many people, and being around, sounds daft, being around the deaf community, because at that point at school and stuff, I didn't really know anyone who was deaf. So it opened my eyes, and everyone were amazing, and I still sort of in contact with everyone now and stuff. So
in terms of your rugby career, you came to rugby quite late. You were 15 years old. We do hear in the game that players, oh, I was at minis from whatever age. When you were coal carrying, everyone else had a rugby ball in their hands. And you've just taken to it like a duck to water. But how come it took you so long to find rugby?
Well, I think rugby, it's because of it was because of my cochlear implant, really, because like anyone with a cochlear implant, you get told you're not allowed to do contact sports, just due to the risks of it. And the risks are there's a couple of risks. One of them is you might break the processor on the ear. That can easily break, but that can be replaced. That's okay. The bigger risk is obviously the magnet that's inside the head.
Right, of course.
And they're basically saying if you get an impact hard enough on that implant to dislodge it, obviously there's so many complications that can come with that. If it dislodges, it might mean it might not work again. So probably need to reoperate on it to put the magnet back in place, but then it doesn't mean that it'll work again. And I've heard that they've the magnets kind of dislodged, so then they needed the op, but then they've had strokes and stuff in the faces, and I'm just there's just a lot of complications that can come with it. So obviously, when I was saying, oh, can I go and play rugby?
They're like, no, absolutely not.
My parents was like, well, no, because obviously the medical side of things are saying you can't do contact sports anyway. And obviously we know all the potential risks, so we don't want you to be doing that and going against medical advice. So
what did you do, Jodie?
Yeah, well, that's my choice. But anyway, so there was I kind of accepted that, and I just went. I think that's why I was doing so many other sports, just anything, just to get stuck into stuff. And then it was when my younger brother started playing rugby, and then I was going to watch him train, watch him play, and I just thought, I really like the look of this.
You like smashing into people.
Yeah, it was just everything. It was the running from sprinting, the contact from fighting. I just think it was very appealing to myself. So yeah, I was to my dad, oh, can't you just let me do it? Can't you just let me have a turn or whatever? And he was like, absolutely not. But then I just kept nagging him, and I think he just got sick of it, and he could see how much I wanted to do it. So it was right, I'll try and speech out to specialists and just see, obviously there's risk, but can you do it anyway? And they all turned around and was like, no, don't even think about it. So then it was oh, well, we'll look into safety measures like head guards or padding or all that sort of side of things. And then I sort of just came across a rugby scrum cap, just the usual scrum cap. It was oh, this might be okay, we'll just add extra padding in. And I'll let you do a rugby session. And I was like, brilliant. So then turned up for my first rugby session, and I was just so nervous. I didn't want to get out the car or anything like that. And if he didn't give me his little pep talk, I probably wouldn't have wanted to do it. But it was typical Yorkshire dad, I ain't drove all this way for you to back out now, so get out there or whatever. So I did it, and then kind of just went from there really. But for me, I know it's my responsibility, and it's all there is that risk, and I know that. But then I'm I'd rather, because in any sport, there's a risk of breaking your leg in the next game you play, but you do it anyway, don't you? So I kind of see it the same way with
with your implant.
With my implant, yeah.
I think that's a really, positive outlook, because you're not letting that define you. You're not letting it take control of what you are basically born to do. It feels like rugby is a space you were just meant to be. There's always a risk whenever you take to the pitch or whatever it is that you're doing. And actually, it doesn't matter. You know, why should you be any different to anyone else? Okay, you've got a little bit of machinery behind your ear.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't had any issues. But obviously, like, my number one rule is you have to wear your scrum cap.
Yes.
You don't wear your scrum cap, you're not playing.
You're asking for trouble then, aren't you, really?
Yeah. So then I'm like, I look like an egg, but then I'd rather look like an egg and be able to play, so I'm not complaining.
You don't look like an egg.
Well, I have a white one as well, so I do actually look like
maybe.
an egg. But, like, people know me as, like, oh, with the white scrum cap, and my family know me with my white scrum cap, so I've just thought, oh, it's here to stay now. White boots, white scrum cap.
It's part of the brand. Yeah. Eggy brand.
Yeah, eggy brand, literally.
You started when you were 15.
Yeah.
You clearly worked out you were pretty good, and by the time you were 18, you got a contract with GB7s.
Yeah.
In that space of time, what happened, and how did you get scouted for that contract?
But it was just very fast. I mean, even from so I went to that first rugby session, and then within that weekend, there was oh, do you want to go on the bench to play for club? I didn't know anything about rugby at this point. First time I picked up a rugby ball, I didn't know the laws or anything like that. All I knew was you have to pass it backwards.
That's a good start.
Yeah. And you have to tackle people. That's generally all I knew at that point. Yeah. But even within sort of a couple of weeks, one of the county, so Yorkshire, one of the scouts was at training, club training, and I was sort of been speaking to my dad and stuff, and then it was literally a couple of months I was sort of then representing Yorkshire under 15s, and then Yorkshire under 18s, and then sort of went into England under 15s, and then England under 18s, and then just as I was about to and then I went to Loughborough College on a rugby sort of pathway, and then just as I was about to start uni, that's when I sort of got picked up by the England Sevens. But then how that came about was just bizarre, because I was finished college, just about to start uni, had it all mapped out. And because obviously I'm deaf, I do not do phone calls. Anyone, if you call me, I'm not picking it up. That's just, but yeah, so obviously the England coach so this is the England Sevens coach now, had ran my dad. So I was at Loughborough College. My dad was back at home. So he ran my dad saying, oh, we want to offer Jodie an England Sevens contract and move down to Twickenham and basically be a full-time rugby player on the HSBC series. So then I was I didn't know at this point. So then I was at college and get a random message from him saying, oh, me and my mum, we might, meaning me and him and my mum, it's oh, we'll come to Loughborough and should we go for a little cheeky Nando's? And I was well, this is out of the blue. For one, why does randomly saying they want to come and see me and then out of all places go for a cheeky Nando's? But anyway, so that's what they did. And then we had the Nando's and they gave me a card. And I was why are they giving me a card? It's not anyone's birthday or anything. And then the card was literally something congratulations on your first job or something like that, on your England Sevens contract. And the first thing that came to my head, I thought, this is a really, really mean joke that you're playing. Because we're my family are just like that anyway. So I thought, this is cruel. You brought me to Nando's to play this sick joke on me. But anyway, then I was there was obviously no, we're being serious. This is real. They called your dad, and obviously we wanted to come and tell you in person. So then
turns out it's really nice of them.
Yeah, and then literally I was my life changed literally 360 then. So instead of going to Loughborough, I thought, right, I'll take the year out, because obviously if any opportunity, I'm going to go down to Twickenham and focus on this. So yeah, by 18, moved down to Twickenham and was just life as a full-time rugby player, which was just madness at the time.
I mean, the absolute dream. I bet it felt like you just won the jackpot, didn't it?
It was just I couldn't believe it. First of all, I was what, me in the England Sevens? I was because obviously I was 18, I was new to rugby. I didn't really believe in myself at all at that point, so it was just completely out of the blue. And then my dad gets the call. It was where has this come from? So it was just a surreal moment. And then...
So you didn't see it coming at all?
No.
Wow.
Literally, I was like gobsmacked. That's why I thought it was a joke, because I thought this cannot be real.
And on the Sevens circuit, it's not just at Twickenham, is it?
No, it's literally all over the world.
Where is it? Hong Kong, Dubai, LA?
Yeah,
So
I mean, like Canada as well. Yeah. It was just...
And you were how old? 18?
18, yeah. So, I mean, all like the places I've been, my parents haven't even been in a lifetime, so...
I feel like any 18-year-old would absolutely dream to just be able to travel like that and then to do that and play the sport that you absolutely love.
Yeah, and be surrounded by teammates who I've literally like idolised like growing up and stuff, so...
What was the pinnacle moment for you?
I actually probably say like my first cap, just because again it was like a moment that I'd never saw coming, especially at that time in my life. So yeah, I remember it was against New Zealand in Glendale, out of all the teams as well. And I literally got put on in like literally the last minute or so. Like it was just to like get me on the pitch, just get it out and like get my first cap. And I literally like remember sort of threw me the ball, I literally carried it in and that was it. But I was just like...
Sorry, you scored a try though?
No.
Oh, I thought you said carried it in. I was like, you carried it into the changing room.
I literally caught the ball and just smashed into someone. I just wanted to not drop it. I didn't want to do anything daft. And then the game was done. That was it. That was like a pinch me moment. I just thought, what have I done to like be in this moment right now? So it was crazy. But
I love that when you just think, how have I got myself here?
Literally. I was like, what is happening right now?
You've now transitioned to the game of 15s. You were playing for Sale. You've recently signed for Exeter Chiefs.
Yeah.
How are you finding the game now? Few more players on the pitch?
Yeah, it's obviously different to sevens because I really love sevens, but then obviously the opportunity with sort of the 15s, because before, even when I was at Sale, it was still very like you were bouncing in and out of sort of sevens and 15s. But obviously, I sort of had the opportunity at Chiefs and just a time to really focus on 15s and see if I can sort of get game time in the Prem 15s and just try and develop as much as a player, as a 15s player. That'll also help me as a sevens player. So I didn't really know what to expect when I went to Exeter, but I absolutely love it. And now being near the beach, the girls are amazing. So now I'm like, I literally cannot imagine my life not being near the beach, literally.
They're a good bunch down there. Yeah. They are. And when you're playing rugby with your cochlear implant, is it more difficult to hear people on the pitch? You know, do things get lost in translation? Is there a bit of a... Do they have to speak with their eyes a bit more?
Yeah, it's the most challenging, obviously, being deaf is when I'm playing rugby. That is like, it is tough and that's like, there's no sugarcoating that. But obviously, like, it's hard enough. Sort of when I'm one-on-one with people, I can lip read, it's quite environment, but when you're on a rugby pitch, it's like, 15 players on our end, but then a pitch of girls screaming, shouting, running all different directions, crowd, it is literally like impossible. I can't really lip read because everyone's running anyway, so I kind of just have to really rely on my eyes and just like sort of predict what people are going to do, read body language, just read the game, read where the space is. And then, yeah, little hand signals here and there, but...
You are inspiring people everywhere with what you're doing on the field. Young people who have been born in a similar scenario can see your success and be like, I can do that. You're the first female rugby player that is deaf. Do you feel like you're paving the way for the younger generation who maybe thought that rugby wasn't a space for them?
I mean, like, people tell me that, but I'm just like, I'm just playing rugby, I'm just loving it, and I'm also just trying to raise awareness as well. But I think it's more like when parents have like told me about their experiences with their kids and stuff, and like when I sort of get messages like that, sort of like girls saying, my daughter's now getting into rugby because she's got cochlear implants and now she's got this fancy multicoloured scrum cap and just little stuff like that. I'm just like, that's crazy, that's bizarre, that, you know, I'm just like cracking on. But yeah, it warms my heart really, and I think that's why I'm passionate about it now, just trying to sort of show it is possible, I suppose.
And you're a patron for the Elizabeth Foundation, which is actually where you were talking about a little bit earlier on in the podcast. That's where you learnt your speech therapy.
Yeah.
So you're giving back to that community already.
I mean, even with the Elizabeth Foundation, though, that just happened by a chance to sort of rekindle with them. Because in lockdown, me and my family decided to do a 24-hour sport-a-thon. So we basically just exercised 24 hours at our home, different sports. We had different instructors on Zooms and stuff. We sort of raised all the money for the Elizabeth Foundation. And then they actually called. And turns out the two women who were speaking to me helped me do my speech therapy when I was younger. So it was just such a coincidence. And then we sort of rekindled. And then that's how they sort of asked me to be patrons. So.
That's such a full circle moment, being able to speak to the people who saw you that young and that they could remember you.
Yeah, well, I think it were easy to recognise me with a little frizzy curly hair that I had back then. But it was just so nice. And now we're sort of in really close sort of contact. So.
That's not the only place you work with, because you're also the honorary president of UK Deaf Sport. What does that entail?
Basically, we want to get more deaf young kids into sport, whether that's like deaf competitions or just mainstream, and just even if it's like ways to get funding for the Deaf Olympics, for example, exposure in the media of just general deaf awareness, more deaf teams in various different sports. So again, that's something I'm really passionate about, and I was just like grateful to be asked to cover that position, because obviously the president previously had been in the role for like 20 plus years. So I felt like I had big, shoes to fill. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's just a sort of process, really.
It's amazing that you, like you say, you've been selected to kind of pave the way for the next generation, raise awareness, and also try and make sport a bit more accessible for people who can't hear, no matter where they are on the spectrum. It's important for everyone to feel included.
Yeah.
Now, I can't finish the chat, Jodie, without diving a little bit deeper into your new career on the telebox. You're part of BBC's relaunch of Gladiators. I used to love that show, and I'm so excited that it's back, but probably not as excited as you are, because you got a big part in that.
Yeah, I mean, like, even when I think about it now, I'm just like, oh yeah. Like, I don't sort of really realise it's actually happening, but yeah, it's just so exciting, like, for the sort of big comeback. And, it was so big back in the day, so I do have a really sort of good feeling about it this time round as well.
How did this opportunity come about? Did they slide into your DMs? Did someone scout you?
I actually saw it coming out, like, when I was in England Sevens camp, actually. This were, like, months and months previously. And it just happened. I was like, oh, my God, I think they're bringing out Gladiators or whatever. And everyone was like, well, what's Gladiators? I thought, oh. And then months later, I actually thought it was like a fake. I thought it was fake, like this sort of email. And I got invited to a trial. But then I couldn't do the trials because obviously it was during season. It was like during training, keep putting it off. And then they had one more trial. This was like, what I didn't realise at the time, but when I was there, this was like the last trial they had. And this last trial happened to land in a deload week, which a deload week is like a rest week from Chiefs. So I thought, okay, I can go to the trial, which was like brutal. It was savage.
Not part of the deload week, really.
No, not part of a deload week. But anyway, got through the trial, which was a very like physical trial, and then we had like multiple interviews and just getting to know us, like what our names would be, why we want to be there, why you think would be good. And they were just even filming us interacting with people and, filming all like the different stations just to get a full like picture of who we were. And then that was it, forgotten about for like a good while, and then sort of got the call saying that they're sort of interested and want to take things further, which was an absolute shock to me because I thought, okay, they want me back basically. And then a couple of more sort of calls, a couple of more like, things, questions and interviews, up until sort of a Zoom call. I said, right, we want to speak to you. And then sort of told me that I had the job, which was like, I just did not believe it.
You found out you're a gladiator.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind?
The first thing in my mind, I was like, generally did not think I'd be getting it. So then that was the first thing I did. I went straight to Chiefs. I said, Susan, I need to speak to you. And then we sat down, spoke about it, because I thought I'm going to have to turn the opportunity away because rugby, Chiefs, you're not going to let me do it. But they were very, very supportive of me and was like, you can't turn an opportunity down like this. So, yeah.
And you're speaking about Susie Appleby, who's the head coach.
Yeah.
She knows that Fury is going to bring down a few more fans
Yeah.
to Sandy Park.
She knows a couple of more players as well. So, yeah.
You look absolutely amazing in your outfit, but also you have a lot of hair.
Yeah. I wish I could say it was my hair, but it's not. But yeah, it's very different, I'd say that. Very bold, blue braids, warrior kind of style.
Love it.
But it matches my persona, so, and I won't have it any other way. So yeah, me right now is just sort of my little shy Jodie Ounsley, but when I'm Fury, I'm furious.
Yes, you are. How powerful do you feel when you like put your Fury suit on?
I feel like a badass. It's like some level of confidence. Do you know, like when you're a bit drunk and you get a bit more confident? It's
Sadly,
like,
yes.
It's like that. When I get my Fury sort of persona, I'm like, I'm confident and I can I'm ready to go to battle, basically.
We all kind of need an outfit like that, don't we?
Yeah, and a persona, just like that's my badass self, and you can just sort of tune into it. A bit like when I go in the rugby field, I just switch. I'm like, I feel confident, I'm ready, and then afterwards, I'm just like hugging people, like, yeah, that was a good game, that wasn't it?
Sorry if I hit you.
Yeah, sorry, love.
You have done so much. Does it feel like the beginning, though, of your journey? No.
No. I feel like, oh gosh, a lot has happened, and I'm like, okay, I'm 22. There's still quite a long way to go yet. So it's just exciting to think what the future may hold. So just work hard and crack on and see what comes from it, I suppose.
Absolutely. And just finally, what's the best bit of advice you've been given?
Funny enough, mine's around nerves. Because obviously I get nervous a lot. And I remember Linford Christie saying nerves is a really good thing. And he's an Olympic sprinter. So everything I do in life, when I'm nervous, it's a good thing. It shows that I care. And yeah, nerves is a good thing. That's what I'd say.
You know what? I feel I relate to that loads. I think when you stop getting nervous, or maybe not nervous, but have that little feeling in your tummy, then maybe if you don't have that, you're not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You should have that, or a little bit of an element to that, to keep you on your toes. And like you say, it's a sign you care, right?
Yeah, literally.
I'm feeling a bit like that about the podcast.
Just same. We're in it together.
We are in it together. Yeah. I cannot wait. Thank you so much, Jodie. You are fabulous, and I'm delighted to be your co-host.
Yeah, it's exciting.
You ready to go on a little podcasting journey together?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's do it.